could it be? With me, your man, Louie T. Welcome to continued coverage of the 2018 NFL Scouting Combine here on the Louie T Network. Of course, I'm your set man, Louie T. Thank you for joining me on the program. Day 4, the final day of the 2018 NFL Scouting Combine in the books. We will break it all down here as the defensive backs took the field to showcase their talents and to further their draft stock as we get closer to pro days and then the 2018 NFL Draft. It's been a long weekend. A lot of different things have transpired over the life of this combine. And this was a really entertaining combine. Some position groups disappointed, others shined through. And there was no difference here in day 4. I thought the corners, just to give you a quick overview, I thought the corners were a little bit disappointing. And I'm here to tell you that this cornerback group pales in comparison to last year's cornerback group that I thought was really impressive. Of course, Marshall Lattimore headed that group, and he was outstanding. But there were other good corners to be had last season. I don't necessarily feel like this group stands out. And so we'll talk about the corners and what I saw. And obviously, everyone didn't work out. And so we'll get into all of the particulars at the cornerback position. But then you look at the safeties, and everyone didn't work out there. But they shined with athleticism, which intrigues everyone. I'm so used to Dion going, man, these guys are slow. Well, that wasn't the case this year. And the safeties, they were faster than the corners. It was ridiculous. But Charles Davis made sure he put a little bit of perspective in why the safeties were running as fast as they were. He said, look, a lot of these guys are converted corners to safety. Makes a lot of sense because those guys were flying. But I'll tell you this much. They were flying, and they've got some size to them as well. So I'm very intrigued by the safety group this season. And again, a lot of these guys may be able to convert to corner at the next level just because of how athletic they are. And some of those guys actually moved well in some of the drills once they hit the field. So we'll talk about all of those guys here in a second. But first, if you haven't already done so, make sure you subscribe to the Louie T Network for more great content in 2018 and beyond. We're changing the game. I want you to help us do that by simply hitting that subscribe button, becoming a member of the Louie T Network. If you're buying anything on Amazon, down in the description, click on any one of the links that'll take you to Amazon and make your purchase through one of those links to help your man Louie T out, as I am an Amazon affiliate. And so if you're buying anything, again, I don't give a damn what it is, a pair of socks, ebook, I don't care what you're buying, headphones, you're buying a new computer, I don't care what you're purchasing, a shirt, it doesn't matter, okay? The item could cost $2. I don't care. Make your purchase through one of my links down below in the description or off the site, louietnetwork.net. And if you haven't visited the site, and you haven't been active on the site, what are you waiting on? Check out the site, louietnetwork.net. Also, the podcast is up there and available. A new episode will be dropping tomorrow, so Wednesday. So keep your eyes peeled for that as well. Every Wednesday, new episode of the Louie T Network podcast coming at you live and in color. So check that out. It's there for your consumption. So with that being said, let's jump into day 4, the final day of the 2018 NFL Scouting Combine. We start with the cornerbacks. Group 10 for you at home keeping score. Group 10 is the cornerback group, or was the cornerback group. And there were some guys that stuck out. And so I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 guys on my checklist. And this was a lengthy group. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19 guys written down, and yet only 6 made the checklist. So that tells you somewhat how underwhelming this group was for me in watching them. But the big names, it's weird because the bigger names in this group, they didn't, to me, perform up to the standards that we set for big name corners. I thought it was some of the other guys that we were looking to, some of the secondary names, some of the guys that we knew but wanted to see how fast they run or how they were going to move in some of the movement drills. It was some of those guys, some of those names that I thought stood out. And the first guy that's on the checklist, and one of the first names that popped up on the screen today, obviously in alphabetical order, was Jaire Alexander out of Louisville. And I thought Jaire Alexander was outstanding. I thought of all the corners, he may have helped himself the most. 5'10", 196. We know he's a feisty guy. Will come up, get in your face. He'll tackle. Will go after the football. And I want to say this. I may not have loved the corners, but both the corner and safety groups, so both defensive back groups, caught the football extremely well, which is something we really haven't been able to say over the last 2 or 3 years strong. I thought these guys caught the football extremely well. They looked comfortable in doing so. A lot of those guys were high pointing the football in some of these drills like you're supposed to. Even in the W drill where you've got to come back to the football, a lot of guys like to kind of slow down, and even some come to a complete stop to catch the football. A lot of these guys were running through the ball because in the league, if you're coming back on a comeback or outbreaking route, you're not going to be able to stop and wait for the football to come. That's how receivers get balls picked off. You've got to come back downhill and come take that football, especially as a defensive back. So you've got to run through the ball. A lot of these guys are doing that, so I want to make sure I give them credit for being able to catch the football. And a lot of these guys are running through the football or high pointing it at its highest point during a lot of these drills. But back to Jair Alexander, I thought he was outstanding. The movement skills were off the charts, and I didn't know how fast he was going to run. That was a question mark that a lot of people had. And 4.3840 for Jair Alexander out of Louisville. This guy lit it up at the combine. And like I said, of this particular group, I think he's the guy that may have helped himself the most, because a lot of people liked him and a lot of people had him in that top 5 to 7 range in this cornerback draft class. And I think after the time he ran and some of the movement skills that he showed out on the field, he's going to force guys to go back and maybe put the tape on it. And he may go up the draft board after what he was able to put forth out on the field in day 4 of the combine. Anthony Everett and Troy Brown, 2 corners out of Alabama. We know I've talked about this ad nauseum. At Alabama, you know they're going to be coached up well. Nick Saban is a cornerback guru, a defensive back guru, if you will. It's what his position as a position coach was at the NFL level under Bill Belichick when he was in Cleveland. This is what he does. He's a guy that can get these corners to play at a very high level. And so you know they're going to tackle, they're going to be physical, and they're going to be fast most likely and athletically gifted. And that's what we saw from these corners out of Alabama, starting with Anthony Everett, 5'11", 183, 4.3640 for Anthony Everett. And he was Everett. He was really good throughout the day. Didn't make my checklist. I thought he was really good. There were some times though where he didn't follow directions, and again, I'm not beating him up for that, because again, who cares about that when it comes to product on the field? But nonetheless, he's a guy that was really solid, and I think he did some really good things. And if you were intrigued by Anthony Everett going into this process, then you're even more intrigued by him after what he was able to do running. And we knew he was going to run fast because he's a track guy, but nonetheless, I thought he did some good things. But the guy that really impressed me out of Alabama, and again, the tape doesn't do him any justice. And so a lot of people are going to have questions. Where was this? Okay, why weren't you playing more? Why weren't you making more plays? It's Tony Brown, 6 feet, 200 pounds, essentially at 199. That's great size. And then the 4.3540 is ridiculous. I want to say he was the one that ran the 40, and he ran the 40, and the Pittsburgh Steelers scout that does the 40 times, that is the guy that kind of instructs them and makes sure that they get a good start, or they got the hand up for the right amount of ticks. He stopped him, and the dude came, and he had a great start, and he came back to the line, and he's like, "Man, why you stop me?" And he was like, I thought you clicked your heels." He said, "Man, I ain't clicked my heels. Come on, man, shit." And they got all of that audio on television. It was great. He was not happy about having to do it over, but all he did was come back and blaze a 4.35. I mean, that's it. I mean, fast guys run fast, slow guys run slow, and as a wise man once told me, it's only when the opposite happens that it's a story. And so he knew he was going to run fast. He had a great start. He had another great start, and he was impressive. If Jair Alexander helped himself the most, Tony Brown is right on his heels. Again, really talented, and the skill set speaks for itself. Now it's about the tape, and I've got to go back and watch him, because of those Alabama secondary members, he was the one that was the lesser known of the group. I knew Anthony Everett coming into this thing. I know about Ronnie Harrison. I know about Minkah Fitzpatrick. Okay, not a lot of people know about Tony Brown. And so after watching this man go out, and the movement skills were off the charts. He snatched the football out of the air. Everything about Tony Brown said, hey man, I'm here and I'm announcing my presence, and I can play football, and I've got all the measurables, all the speed, all of the things you look for in the NFL corner. Now the question is, how does that translate? What does the tape say? So questions there, but make no mistake about it. Tony Brown helped himself a ton, and he made my checklist in day 4 of the combine for the cornerbacks. Carlton Davis was a guy I really wanted to see out of Auburn. 6'1", 206. You know, these bigger corners tend to be a little bit stiff, and he fits into that category. He's a press coverage corner. I remember watching him. I watched a ton of him because it seems like he's been at Auburn starting for forever, and he's always in someone's face. And I love the fact that he played in the SEC, because we get SEC receivers every single year coming out, and you get to see guys like Carlton Davis get in their face and press. And so I watched a ton of his tape just off of watching other Auburn guys come out, like Carl Lawson, and even some of the other corners that have come out of Auburn over the last couple of years. So I've been able to watch a lot of Carlton Davis indirectly, but just watching him, he's a very physical guy. I thought that he might run a little slow, and 4.53 is actually pretty good for him. I thought he was going to be a little bit slower than that. So at 6'1", 206, thought he was really solid. Thought he was really solid throughout the day. He dropped the football a little bit, and one of the knocks on him is that he doesn't always find the football. And so I question his ball skills a little bit, because of all of the big name corners, I thought he let the football hit the ground the most. So that's something that I'm going to watch on tape. But in any event, he was really solid. And I think he's a guy that is going to come off the board in the second day of the draft after watching him out on the field in day 4 of the combine. Duke Dawson out of Florida was a guy that I wasn't that privy to going into this whole combine. 5'11", 197, 4.46, 40. He's a guy that I think, and there are a number of guys in here that we can peg them as slot guys, and I think he's the first of about 3 or 4 guys that I'm going to name that are probably going to be slot guys. And Deion came on, and I thought Deion was outstanding this year. In past years, Deion's kind of rambling and talking about stuff that doesn't matter. I thought Deion was outstanding this year, and the coverage is always great. I always give it up for Mike Mayock and Rich Eisen. They make it fun, and I thought those guys were hilarious this year, and some of the sidebar conversations were outstanding. Some of the jokes that Daniel Jeremiah and Charles Davis and all of those guys were kind of going back and forth and telling stories and things of that nature. I thought all that stuff was outstanding this year. The coverage is always top notch. Love watching the combine. Look, when you're gonna make me sit and waste 7 hours of my life, at least make it entertaining, and those guys, they do that. And so Deion was kind of asking, why are we putting these guys in boxes? Why are we kind of differentiating these corners? Why can't they just be corners? And it's a different day and age. It's a different league, and you got to have a guy that specifically can play in the slot. You got to have guys that can take away the guys that got to win in the slot, because on 3rd and 7, the big name quarterbacks are looking for someone to win in the slot. Brady's looking for Amendola. Brady's looking for Julian Edelman on 3rd and 7 to win in the slot. Brady's looking for Gronk to win in the slot on 3rd and 7. You gotta have guys that can cover those slippery receivers in the slot. Cole Beasley is winning on 3rd and 7. Jamison Crowder is going to win on 3rd and 7 unless you have a guy that can take him away. And so you gotta have these more shiftier corners. Two-way go, it's tough in the slot. Not everybody's built to play in the slot. Duke Dawson is a guy with some speed and some quicks that looks the part of a guy that could potentially be a solid slot at the next level. I thought his movement skills were good, and that 4.46 40 doesn't hurt either for Duke Dawson out of Florida. Holton Hill was a guy that I was really intrigued by coming into this because of his size at 6'2", 196. I knew he had some off-the-field issues coming in. He got suspended for like the last 3 or 4 games of the season at Texas. So I knew there was a little bit of baggage coming. But you wanna have the noise off the field be quieted, go out and blow up on the field, and that will put a little bit of that to rest. And The 4.49, great time at 6'2", 196. The movement skills, he was a little stiffer than I thought he would be. On tape, and I've watched a little bit of him indirectly because I've watched a little bit of the linebacker Malik Jefferson. So indirectly, I ran into Holton Hill, but I thought he looked a little bit more fluid on tape. But notwithstanding, the fact that he ran a 4.49 lets me know he's got the long distance speed and that he can move. And I like Holton Hill, and I think with the off the field issues, he might be a guy that drops, and someone may get themselves a day 3 steal. I don't think he's going to go in day 1 or 2. I know he's not going day 1, and I don't think he's going day 2. But someone's going to get them a nice steal in day 3 if they can get him somewhere in the 4th, late 4th, early 5th. I think you can get yourself a really good corner and potentially in Holton Hill out of Texas. Mike Hughes was a guy that a lot of people liked coming into this process. I think Mike Mayock had him as the number 2 or 3 corner on his board. Dion said he was his number 1 guy coming into the day. Dion left the combine a little disappointed in Mike Hughes. One, a lot of people thought he was going to be faster, including myself. Okay, if you're 5'10", 189, and you want to play outside, then I need you to be faster than that. And when you watch him on tape, he looks way faster than 4.53. Some guys just don't test well, and maybe his play speed is faster than the testing speed, whatever the case may be. He was stiff throughout the day. He didn't move as well. The change of direction wasn't what we thought it was going to be. The hips weren't as fluid. And so Dion was a little turned off. And Mike Mayock was like, I thought Mike Hughes would be a little bit more faster, and he would be a little bit more twitchy than what we saw. But nonetheless, he's a guy that the tape speaks for itself. And I think the combine, he wasn't terrible. All right, the 4.53, I don't think is going to scare teams. And I don't know if this is going to diminish his draft stock any. I didn't think he was terrible, and I didn't think he was bad to the point, because there are some guys that had a really rough day. All right, that he didn't do that. Okay, he didn't wet the bed. So if you liked Mike Hughes coming in to the day, then you still like Mike Hughes. If you were on the fence, maybe this one forces you to say, I don't know, I might take a fly, but I'm going to pass most likely on him. If you didn't like him, then this confirms why you don't like him. So it was that kind of day for Mike Hughes. It wasn't a big needle mover for him, so to speak. But if people were on the fence about him, he didn't do anything to persuade you in his favor in day 4 of the combine. Grant Haley is a guy out of Penn State that I knew of coming in, hadn't done a lot of study on him, but knew that he was a guy that you could look at it as one of these slots. And I talked about them being a few in this group, particularly here. 5'9", 190. He ran a 4.44 Moses Malone 4.44, and for a guy in the slot with some quicks, that's a hell of a time. And he's another guy that I thought helped himself quite a bit today, opened some eyes, and it's going to force people to go back and put the tape on of him. As I'm thinking and recollecting on his day, you can go ahead. I'm going to put a check by his name. Matter of fact, let me do that right now. And he'll be the 7th and final check of the day for me. I thought he was really good and showed a lot of good movement skills. And I like his quickness and his change of direction. It was nice all day long. And again, at 5'9", 190, he's going to be relegated to the slot. And I want to watch more. I want to watch tape on him. I can't say watch more because I haven't watched any. I want to watch tape. I'm anxious to see what this guy brings to the table after seeing the athleticism that he displayed in day 4 of the combine. Let's talk about some of the bigger name corners that really had a rough go of it. Let's start with Josh Jackson. I talked about on the podcast how this was a big day for Josh Jackson because a lot of people love the ball skills, love his ability to play off in coverage, but a lot of people wanted to see, could he run? What was the long distance speed? And so at 6 feet 196, 4.56, not bad. Not bad for a longer corner. He's a long guy, as you can see with the graphic behind me, that he's a long guy. You know, long arms, long legs, well put together. He can go up and get the football. There were a couple of times. His hands, there's nothing to talk about. Those are A1, all right? X wide receiver, so he can catch the football, does it with ease. That's not the problem here. He's got some technical flaws, though. His back pedal is horrendous. It's almost as if he can't bend. And Dion made a note of this, and I think Mike Mayock kind of piggybacked off of it, was that a lot of these guys don't backpedal in college. And so they aren't used to the fundamentals that you need to take with you to the next level. And a lot of these guys look like fish out of water, especially in this cornerback group. The movement skills of this group as a whole wasn't the greatest. And he was, to me, the poster child for a lot of guys struggling with backpedal and flipping the hips. His hips are extremely tight. And change of direction, putting your foot, sticking it in the ground, planting, not wasting a step, and having to gather to then go forward. That's how you break on the football at the next level. And that change of direction, being able to stick your foot in the ground, no wasted movement, and change direction. He struggled with that. That W, to me, the W drill really exposed Josh Jackson in all of his flaws. His back pedal is bad and high. His change of direction is slow. He looked like a defeated man. He was uncomfortable all day on the field drills. It was a rough day for Josh Jackson. He did not help himself. As a matter of fact, I think a lot of people were turned off by what they saw from him on the field. If you like Josh Jackson, you like his size and his ball skills and what he brings to the table, you're not gonna be pushed away by this. But if you had some questions about Josh Jackson and you weren't quite sure about him, this may have scared you. This may have scared you, because I know I walked away a little scared. I walked away a little nervous about making Josh Jackson a top 3 corner on my list, top 4 corner on my list. So obviously I've got to go back, watch the tape, and you don't want to put too much stock into what we saw, but he's definitely uncomfortable, and he's young. I told you, he's a young corner. All right, only 2 years, really a year and a half, but let's just say 2 years playing a cornerback position. He's still raw, as we saw today, and he's got a lot of work to do. But all the things you need are there. He can run. He's got length. He's got ball skills. All the things you need are there. And so if you don't mind coaching up a young fella, then this is the type of guy that you wouldn't mind drafting. But if you want a ready-to-go product, Josh Jackson is not the guy you're looking for at the top of this draft. Without even working out, I think Denzel Ward might have separated himself from the rest of the group, just by running the 40 and doing nothing else. And we'll get to Denzel Ward a little bit later on. Another guy that really struggled, and I think he may be a safety, is Tavares Mcfadden out of Florida State. I also talked about him and how this was a good time to really figure out what this guy was. And we figured out what he was. He's a safety. He did not move well at all. He's got ball skills. Like I said, everybody in these two groups, for the most part, caught the football well. There were a couple of guys that may have let the ball hit the ground a little bit more than I like. But for the most part, everybody caught the football. That includes Tavares Mcfadden out of Florida State. But make no mistake about it, this guy is slow. He does not flip his hips well. He does not change direction well. His straight line speed isn't all that good at 4.67. Yes, he's big guy at 6'2", 204. No excuse to be that slow as a corner. Either he's cover two-ing it, or he's going to safety. Those are his only two options. Either he's a cover 2 corner. A guy like Tampa Bay, a team like Tampa Bay would love a guy like this for that cover 2 scheme, if that's what you're into. But if you're looking to have a guy that can run, he gets beat. I've seen him beat. I've watched more than my fair share of Florida State football to know that Tavares Mcfadden is a guy that can be beaten. I think he's a safety. He had a rough day, along with Josh Jackson. Nick Nelson out of Wisconsin, a Hawaii transfer, 5'11", 200 pounds, 4'5", 40. I think he is going to be a guy that he's going to get an opportunity to compete outside first, but I think he may ultimately be a slot guy. And I thought he had a solid day. Thought Nick Nelson had a really solid day, movement skill-wise. Thought he caught the football well. Thought Nick Nelson did a lot of good things, and I think his draft stock was helped by his performance today. Isaiah Oliver was another guy that I was really looking forward to seeing. and at 6 feet 201. I told you Colorado has been churning out corners of late. We all know about last year and how big of a draft it was for their secondary. Tedrick Thompson being drafted as a safety. You had Akilo Witherspoon, which was one of my favorite guys in the entire draft at the cornerback position last year. And then also you had Chidobe Awuzie out of Colorado as well that was drafted by the Dallas Cowboys. So it was a big year for Colorado last year in the draft, and they're sending another guy in the draft as a high-level corner in Isaiah Oliver, and I thought he answered the bell today. 4.50 40 at 6 feet 201 is a tremendous time for him, and I thought his movement skills were really good all day long. I thought he actually leapfrogged Josh Jackson today. Just from a natural cornerback perspective, he's much more natural as a corner than that of Josh Jackson, who has a long way to go in his development. And I thought that we saw some ball skills from Isaiah Oliver. Ball hit the ground a couple of times, but he also made some outstanding grabs on that W drill coming back to the football. Ball was way outside of his frame. He reached out and plucked it. Thought he did some really good things throughout the day, and I liked Isaiah Oliver a lot. He was a guy that I spotlighted going into this thing, and he did not disappoint. He received a check mark from me on the day, and I think he elevated himself to probably the second, at worst, the third cornerback in this draft class. He did himself some wonders today with what he was able to put forth out on the football field. A guy that injured himself during the 40, but left an impression before he was not able to continue was Parry Nicholson, out of Tulane, 4.32 40 at 5'8", 182. Obviously, I don't know this guy, but again, you can't ignore that kind of speed. It warrants you to go back and at least give him a look-see and see what he's about. So he did his job. Again, I said it yesterday. When you blaze the 40, even if you don't do anything else, and if we don't know who you are going into this thing, and Deion said it, and I said it yesterday, and I think that's the truest thing of the Combine is it's a great platform for guys who are lesser known to get their name out there. And again, I always use the Combine as a reference for me to where to start. Well, where do I start looking at some of these prospects? Who intrigues me the most? And I'm able to kind of set the bar at a particular spot from the Combine, and then I go from there. And Parry Nicholson is a guy that he's now on the list of guys that you got to check out and do a little bit of homework on going into this draft after he blazed the 40 at a 4.32. Denzel Ward also ran a 4.32. And Mike Mayock told us from the jump, he's a track guy. He's going to blaze it. That's not what we should be concerned about. At 5'11", 183, he said the only thing I worry about with Denzel Ward is his size in terms of his weight. He's a little thin, and that's the only thing you got to worry about is his frame in terms of him needing to put on a little bit of weight. And Deion said, I don't really worry about that. Guys put on 5 to 7 pounds or so, and if Denzel Ward can get to about a $190, he'll be just fine at the next level. We've seen the small stature corners excel at the next level. To me, he's got everything you're looking for in this draft. He's the #1 corner in this draft. And I thought Josh Jackson had a chance today to maybe compete for that title with his size, which would give him an opportunity to throw his name in the hat. Denzel Ward, without even hitting the field, but just running the 40. I think he separated himself from the rest of the class by blazing that 4.32 40 and then watching guys around him struggle. Jair Alexander and Isaiah Oliver, I think, are the next tier down. They're right there. Josh Jackson is still in that tier, obviously, but I think they've surpassed Josh Jackson because, again, if you're not afraid to draft a guy in the first round and know that he may not be ready to help right away, then you draft Josh Jackson. But if you're looking for immediate dividends to be paid off, which you should be, when you spend a first-round pick on a player, we're not looking to babysit somebody. We're not looking to coach a guy up to the point where we're looking to draft and stash him. First and second and even most third-rounders, you're looking for immediate dividends to be paid off in some kind of capacity. And I'm not sure if you're going to get that out of Josh Jackson immediately. He may be a guy that is baptism by fire. You throw him out there, he's going to make his fair share of mistakes, and maybe he learns and grows from it, but he's not coming in and having a Marshawn Lattimore type of impact. Okay, he's not coming in and having a Tre'Davious White type of impact like some of the corners we saw last year come in and immediately upgrade their team at the cornerback position. I don't know if you're getting that out of Josh Jackson. And so that's something that I question when thinking about pulling the trigger in the first round with Josh Jackson. But moving on, Avante Maddox out of Pitt. Again, another guy I had no idea who he was. 4.39 40 at 5'9", 184. Another one of these guys that's going to be relegated to the slot. But God damn it, at 4.39, I got to watch him. I got to see. And it's crazy because I didn't even notice him at all. And I actually watched one of his teammates, Jordan Whitehead, at the safety position. I just wanted to put on a couple of games just to see what Whitehead was working with. And I didn't even notice Avante Maddox. So I've got some work to do on him to go back and watch. But he's got a check mark for me. He moved well, snatched the football out of the air all day long. He was impressive. And so I've definitely got some work to do there, as well as with Devontae Harris out of Illinois State. 5'11", 205, 4'4", 340. He was probably the most aggressive and probably one of the most fluid guys I saw catching a football. I mean, he was literally attacking the ball at every single turn. I don't know if any pass that was thrown his way hit the ground. And he looked natural catching the football. His movement skills were outstanding, and I thought he really helped himself. And I've definitely got some work to do here because I liked a lot of what I saw out of him. And I think he's got the size to not only play in a slot, but potentially still be able to do some damage out wide as well. So I want to see what Devontae Harris looks like on tape. But he also received a check mark from me throughout the day. And another guy that I didn't want to know him. I didn't want to write his name down. I didn't want to talk about him. DJ Reed out of K-State, but he just kept looking the part. 4'5", 140 at 5'9", 188. The quicks, the change of direction, the ball skills. Along with Devontae Harris, DJ Reed, I thought caught the football the best out of this group, and he just continued to do things that made me take notice of him. To the point where I said, all right, I got to do some homework on you. And so he also received a check mark. And then 6 feet, 180 pounds, Greg Stroman out of Vatech, 4'4", 840. I heard he's a really good punt returner in addition to a guy that gives you some value as a corner. And so I got to do some homework there because there's always a place in the league for a guy that can help you on specials as a punt returner. I don't think there are enough dynamic punt returners in the league anymore. And so if you can find a guy that can help you in that regard, there's a place in the league for him. And so if Greg Stroman is as dynamic as advertised as a punt returner, sign me up for some of that as well. So those are your corners. As we go to Group 11, the safeties, and their shine got cut short somewhat by the run, rich run segment of the program. So we really didn't get to see a lot of these guys on the field per se. But nonetheless, I saw enough out of some of these guys in the 40 times as well to know who I need to do work on and who I probably can just kind of bypass and keep it moving on. And so with this group, Group 11, the first guy up set the bar really high, Troy Apke out of Penn State. Boy, that was a funny exchange between Dion and Mike Mayock and Rich Eisen. Troy Apke comes up, blazes a 4.34 40. And it was funny because halfway through his 40 as he's running, Dion says, damn. Dion says, man, he's fast. He's moving. And Rich Eisen says, why are you surprised? Are you surprised? Dion says, come on, man. You know why I'm surprised, man. He didn't want to say it. Well, I'll say it. He's white, okay? White boy out there running. And the funny thing was, I talk about this all the time. White running backs, white corners, okay? There aren't many in the league. I talk about this all the time, every chance I get. And so this guy's got corner speed at 6'1", 200. Keep that in mind. He's big at 6'1", 200. Man's running a 4.34 40. And the movement skills were great all day. He caught the football. I got a check mark by Troy Apke. And I'm here to tell you that the Penn State strength and conditioning coach, take a bow, my man. Golf clap for him. His boys lit it up, okay? Troy Apke lit it up at the safety position. You've got the tight end 2 days ago that lit it up You've got, of course, Saquon Barkley, who lit it up. They did their thing, man. They did their thing at Penn State. We are Penn State. You definitely held it down at the Combine this week, as those guys were explosive, and they didn't blow any tires. A lot of these guys were pulling up lame, and those guys not only were explosive, but they were able to get through all the drills and show off their explosiveness. Troy Apke looks the part, though. And it was funny because Deion said, "Hey, Zim, I got one for you, man." Him talking about Coach Zimmer, and he was making a joke because, again, there are not a lot of white. And the funny thing is, when they all came together in the middle of the field, I looked around. There wasn't another white guy in the group. So that speaks volumes as to how often that white guys are able to show their skills like this and be among the best of a group like this in the secondary. It doesn't happen very often, but Troy Apke looks the part, and Deion was making a joke about Zimmer. Hey, he said, "Hey, Zim, I got another one for you, man." Him obviously speaking of Harrison Smith. Again, not many of those boys at the running back, cornerback, safety position out here balling like that. And, of course, Zim having Harrison Smith, one of the best safeties in the league. He said, "I got another one for you, Zim. I got one for you, man. Come get him." So that was funny, too. But I digress. Quinn Blanding out of Virginia, 6'2", 207. Just an Iron Man. Always on the field, physical, always around the football. Me being in Virginia, I saw quite a bit of Quinn Blanding throughout his career. 4'6", 40 for him. Not bad. And again, keep it in perspective. He's 6'2", 207. That's a great time for a guy that big. But because of how fast all the rest of the safeties were, it kind of diminished what that 4'6", really looked like. But Quinn Blanding, that's a really good time for a guy that I think is going to make an NFL roster and really be a contributor, whether it's as a backup safety or on special teams, or a guy that actually gets into the starting lineup and just balls. I like Quinn Blanding a lot, and I think he's going to be on an NFL roster when it's all said and done. Thought he had a solid day. 6'1", 200 pounds stands Jesse Bates III out of Wake Forest, 4'5", 140. He was flying at 6'1", 200 pounds. Just to keep it in perspective, Troy Apke ran a 4.34 at the same weight, same height. So Troy Apke was balling and flying. Jesse Bates III is a guy that Mike Mayock and DJ were banging the table for. So I'm anxious to see what this guy is capable of. And that 4.51 40 is a really good time for that size at 6'1", 200 pounds. Terrell Edmonds is the brother of Tremaine Edmonds, who lit it up just a day ago at the linebacker position. And he comes in and he lights it up at 6 feet, 217 pounds, 41.5-inch vert, 11.2 broad, and a 4.4 840. Again, man, those two brothers are athletically gifted. Got to watch the tape on Edmonds a little bit more, but I can tell you this much. The athleticism speaks for itself. He wasn't able to do any of the on-the-field drills as he pulled up lame with a hammy after his 40, but he blessed us with a 4.48 before leaving, and that's enough to have me intrigued to turn on the tape. Minkah Fitzpatrick checked all the boxes, 6 feet, 204 pounds, 4.4 640. The question about this guy isn't how athletic he is or is he good enough or any of that stuff. The question is safety or corner, similar to Jalen Ramsey coming out 2 years ago. Safety or corner. You be the judge. So we'll see what teams decide with Minkah Fitzpatrick. I always err on the side of if you're asking the question of safety or corner, you start with corner, and if he can't play corner, then you put him at safety. That's always been my mindset when talking corner or safety and having that debate. Is it's much easier to find a safety. So hard to find great corners in this league. So if you potentially have one on your hands, why not give him a run, see, and give him a test? And if he doesn't pass the test, you can always fall back and put him at safety and know you got yourself a hell of a football player at that position as well. I checked him off. Obviously, he just went out and checked boxes. That's all he did. He went out, checked boxes, and he's going to be the first safety off the board. So there's that. 6'1", 209 pounds out of Arizona is Dane Shank, and Crookshank. I'm gonna tell you right now, Dan Crookshank. He was a guy that might have been one of the most impressive of this group. 6'1", 209, 25 reps of 2 1/4, 4'4", 240. Again, at 6'1", 209. He's big and he's long. He looks the part. And he had good ball skills. He had good movement skills, a little tight in the hips, but I thought he was able to change directions fairly well. I thought he was able to catch the football with confidence. I like this guy a lot, and they said that he picked off both Sam Darnold and Josh Rosen this season. Again, that could be misleading. They could have been tip drill picks for all we know. Doesn't matter. At the end of the day, 6'1", 209, 4'4", 240, 25 reps. He feels a lot like Monte Nicholson from last year. You remember Monte Nicholson? A guy that I crucified him as not being physical enough. And then he came in and he was the most physical safety I think the NFL had come out of the draft last year. So, boy, was I wrong there. But remember, he was a height, weight, speed specimen coming out of Michigan State last year. Dane Shank, he looks the part. He looks the part. So, he got a check from me as well. Derwin James, 6'2", 215, 4'4", 740. What more can I say? What more do I need to say? All right. And look, Deion knows better than I do, so I don't want to question Deion Sanders because he's seen it all, he's done it all, and he would know better than me. But they asked, was Derwin James in the same mold as Jalen Ramsey a couple of years ago? And Deion said no. He said Minkah Fitzpatrick is more so in line with him than Derwin James. And that may be accurate. I'm just telling you, of the two, Derwin James looked more fluid of the two of these guys today. That's just me. Now, Minkah Fitzpatrick has experience playing the cornerback position. And Derwin James does not. So, at least not at the collegiate rank. So, but Derwin James played everywhere. Rover, backer, safety. So, there is versatility there. Ultimately, I think Derwin James is a safety. But, again, I'd love to see at 4'4", I'd love to see if he could. If he can't, then we'll make him a great safety. So, another check mark there. He checked all the boxes, man. I walked away more impressed with him than I did Minkah Fitzpatrick, to be honest with you. But I know Minkah Fitzpatrick is a hell of a football player, and he's going to be the first taken off the board, and he should be. I'm just telling you, I walked away more impressed with Derwin James. Doesn't mean the tape doesn't speak for itself. All right? So, Derwin James was really impressive. I said all of that to say this. He was really impressive. Trey Flowers out of Oak State, 4.45 in the 40 at 6'3", 202. My goodness. He was flying. And he's a guy that's going to force me to go back and put on the tape. Simple as that. Didn't know who he was coming into the process. That size, that weight, that speed, I'm intrigued. Need to see more. So he's one of the guys that I am truly intrigued by. He's got some length on him as well. 5'11", 201 out of Wisconsin stands Natrell Jamerson. I didn't want to write him down. I said he's from Wisconsin. I don't want to write this guy down. And then he ran a 4.4 flat. I said, hands up. You got me. So another guy that I'll be doing some homework on, and I probably indirectly saw him when I was watching Nick Nelson and didn't even know who I was staring at. So I'll go back and watch Natrell Jamerson and see what his game is all about. Justin Reed out of Stanford, 6 feet, 207 pounds, the brother of Reed out of LSU that plays for the 49ers, that is a free agent at this moment. Eric Reed. Boy, was he impressive. He got a check mark from me. 4.4 flat at 6 feet, 207. His movement skills were outstanding all day long. And I got to go watch the tape. But if the tape looks anything like what I saw today, I wouldn't mind my Redskins taking a flyer on a guy like this. Man, he looks good. He looks damn good. And he's probably a guy you're going to be able to get day 3. Early day 3, though. What I saw today, if the tape is even remotely close, he may come off the board day 2. But I'm going to tell you right now, if his tape looks anything like what I saw on the field, late day 2, early day 3, I take him in a heartbeat. Got a check mark for me. Tracy Walker is a guy out of Louisiana Lafayette. That's 6'1", 206, 4'5", 240. Looked good for the most part all day long. And he's another guy that caught my attention and got to do some homework on him. Armani Watts did not run the 40, and he really didn't get a lot of TV time today. They cut this group short for the rich run segment, and the guys that didn't run, like Armani Watts, Kazir White, Jordan Whitehead, Marcus Allen, all of those guys really didn't get a lot of TV time. We really didn't get to see them move athletically as much as we would have liked to. I was really disappointed that Jordan Whitehead, Kazir White, nor Armani Watts ran in the 40, because those were 3 guys, and Marcus Allen out of Penn State as well, who I was really disappointed in, and I'll get to him a little bit later on. Those are all guys that I really wanted to see run the 40. You know, those are all guys I had questions on their speed, and so I wanted to see them run, and I didn't get to see that happen. So not really a lot to say about Armani Watts, Kazir White, or Jordan Whitehead. I did get to see Marcus Allen a little bit in some of the movement drills, and I wasn't that impressed. And at 6'2", 202, with that size, I was really looking forward to seeing him run and seeing him move. And I didn't get to see him run, and I wasn't all that blown away by the movement skills. So of all the Penn Staters, he was the one guy that I walked away saying, damn, you weren't as impressive as I was hoping you would be. But then again, it's small sample size. So got to go back and watch more tape on him as well. But Godwin Igwebuike out of Northwestern was intriguing. 5'11", 213. He reminds me of the safety that the Cleveland Browns took a couple years ago out of Northwestern. That was just a physical, in-the-box safety that I really liked coming out of Northwestern a couple years ago. And he looks the same as that safety did coming out. He runs a little bit faster, though, 4.45, which is what intrigued me to write his name down and say I got to do a little bit of work on him. And so he's another guy that I thought had a solid day. And, again, what the Combine is all about is gaining attention and getting noticed to force people to go back and watch. And he's another name of a guy that I feel like I got to go back and watch is Godwin Igwebuike out of Northwestern. Ronnie Harrison did not participate at all in the Combine. Mike Mayock gave us an update. His agent hit Mike Mayock up and basically said he had tweaked something earlier and really didn't feel comfortable going out and performing. So he didn't do anything on the field, didn't run, none of that. So he's a guy that we need to see that from. I guess at the Alabama Pro Day is when we'll get that from him. But in any event, that is the day 4 of the Combine. Looks like I'm dropping frames like crazy right now. So what I'm going to do is I am going to cut this thing short because I'm probably lagging at this point. So I'm going to go ahead and get out of here. But I'll read you guys' comments and look forward to chopping it up with y'all on Thursday night for In the Draft Room Live. It's been a great process and Combine, and looking forward to moving past it and getting into the real meat and potatoes of the draft with the Draft Prospects 101 series and In the Draft Room Live over the next couple of weeks. So that's going to do it for your man, Louie T. Remember, we're changing the game over here, period. I'll see you guys next time